We don't precisely know what the future holds. We don't know what revenues will come in at the various distributions yet ahead. And we know, because the county executive has said, that he is contemplating a substantial property tax increase in the spring. I've been in very active dialogue with my friend and colleague, the chair of the Government Operations Committee, and it is my hope and expectation that in the fall and leading up to next year's budget, that we have a very serious conversation about the cost of government, about right-sizing, and in particular about compensation at the high end. And so we've asked our Office of Legislative Oversight to review whether Montgomery County compensation is an outlier in terms of other governments in the region and comparable governments around the United States. I received a recent communication from our Office of Human Resources in response to my question as to whether we were benchmarking compensation. And the answer was that generally, yes, we do benchmark compensation, but that the first factor that the executive branch considers is existing salaries. If, as we anticipate, and I'm going to call on Mr. Farber in just a moment, the next two budgets are going to be very tight because the bite from the Wynn decision is going to hit us hardest in 2017 and 2018. I strongly urge the executive branch to be circumspect in the salaries it offers to new hires. I've not proposed that anyone's salary who's currently working for Montgomery County be reduced. But I do believe that basing salaries offered to new hires on salaries already being paid, especially at the top end, holds out a risk of salary inflation. In addition, I'm concerned that the very effective benchmarking may be not a race to the bottom, but a race to the top among jurisdictions in the region. And I appreciate that we want the very best talent, and we have outstanding employees at every level of county government. But if we feel that we must be more generous than Howard County to attract the best talent, and then Howard County says, well, now we want to attract the best talent, and so we're going to be more generous than Montgomery County can afford to be, and Fairfax County is watching all of that, and they start inflating their salaries at the top end. That's a recipe for costs that are not going to be sustainable by taxpayers. Mr. Farber, why is this savings plan necessary?
The Wynn decision itself is now projected to have an impact of about $15 million in lost revenue in fiscal 16 and $77 million in lost revenue in fiscal 17 and fiscal 18. So that's the long answer to your question, Mr. Leventhal. We have a real shortfall in our projected income tax revenue. It could be right now estimated at perhaps $150 million in fiscal 16 and $250 million in fiscal 17. Or rather, fiscal 17 is $150 million, and this will accumulate. So that is why I think there was reluctant agreement on both sides of the street that we needed to have a savings plan now.
We're going to have a roll call vote on the savings plan. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Elrich?
Yes.
Mr. Elrich votes yes. Mr. Hucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hucker votes yes. Mr. Berliner?
Yes.
Mr. Berliner votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Reamer?
Yes.
Mr. Reamer votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Ms. Florine?
Yes.
Ms. Florine votes yes. Mr. Leventhal?
Mr. Leventhal votes yes, and in response to the county executive's request for $51 million in savings, we are producing $54 million in savings.